I knew right away, bro. You stood out when I got into this. You know what I like to do is I like to contact all the top dogs, and any industry I do. I get in and I go right to the top guys, and I try to learn from them. I like to pick their brains and kind of just find what made them so successful. And I got to say, bro, you stood out right away. We haven't even got on interview or anything, but you were the first one in the junk community that I got hit up by an assistant, hitting me up and kind of giving me like, the whole list of topics that you would love to touch on and all that. And I was like, wow. I was like, you definitely stood out with that, man. Like, I've on some of my other channels, I've had people like dealing with some of the athletes and all that, they had their agents, hit me up and kind of go over things, but I didn't expect it from the junk removal industry. And it was very impressive. You got my attention right away, brother. And I could see you're a man that likes to come organized and prepared for everything. And that showed just, in that short communications with setting up this interview. And I just wanted to make a point of that.
Yeah, I've done a few of these things where I'm actually conducting the interview, and I find it helpful to have kind of that bit of information. So it wasn't, I don't present it as a way of I'm saying like, hey, Paul, this is what we need to talk about. And then, on your show, it's like, hey, here are some topics that I know that you may not be aware of that I kind of know about. So if you want to bring them up, and if it goes that way, hey, we'll cover it.
Well, I take it as I really took it as like respect, brother. It was like very impressive to me. It kind of stood out, and I'm one of those guys that likes to stand out, and just like I said, man, I like to find people's strengths, and I could see right from that the organization that you like to come and the preparedness. That's one of those character traits that I look for in a successful person in business.
And Paul, one thing I'll say is I fought the urge or the resistance on getting an assistant for a long time. This is something I probably did. Shannon's only been with me for maybe 4 months now, something like that. And she controls my calendar. She controls most of my messaging. Now, I was the one actually Facebook messaging you there, but she actually has access to my Facebook account. And I'd look at my calendar, and she gives me an update at the end of the day and say, hey, this is what you have going on. And it's made me so much more productive because every single day I've got my calendar completely figured out. She handles the emails on a lot of my emails and stuff too. So if once you get to that point where you need one, I found that an assistant can actually help you make a tremendous amount of money because you don't have to worry about answering emails and scheduling on your calendar. You work on the high value stuff that really provides a lot of impact.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you said that, brother. I actually do the same, and it's my wife is my assistant, like full time. She doesn't work. That's what she kind of does, is kind of helps me run all my businesses and kind of keeps me on schedule. And it's hitting home when you're saying this. So definitely a very smart move there. But I want to jump into, some of the meat and potatoes here, man, because definitely when you sent me over some of the topics, I was definitely impressed, and I didn't know some of the things they were involved in. And one of those being junk doctors. So kind of tell me, how did you come across junk doctors? How did you put it together, and where is it today and all that?
Yeah. So junk doctors, was how I got into junk removal. And it started in 2011. And kind of precursor to that is I race cars. So I raced we're in North Carolina. So it's like the NASCAR hub. So we're doing the roundy round circle track, asphalt style racing out here in North Carolina. I was working a very prestigious job as a manager at a roller skating rink. I'm not even exactly sure they called me a manager there. I think I was making 10 or 12 bucks an hour, and everything I was making was going towards this racing habit. Some might call it an addiction or an affliction, and kind of ran out of money. 10 bucks an hour doesn't get you very far in the racing world. So I sort of ran out of money, and I was left with this pickup truck. Still had my job, but I sold everything off. The truck was an old truck. It never really, people weren't really interested in paying what I was willing to sell it for. So I got to thinking, I said, hey, what's something I can do kind of on the side to my job that would bring in some extra money? I'm like, I've got this truck sitting here. I'm paying insurance on it or whatever. I might as well see if I can put it to use, and I'm willing to work hard. So I knew that I was, willing to load up stuff or move stuff or do deliveries or whatever needed to be done. And I had never heard of junk removal at all at that point. So, you got to remember, there's no YouTube at this point. There's YouTube, but there's no junk removal channels on YouTube. There's no information online. I had never heard of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I'd never seen a 1-800-GOT-JUNK truck. I just went on Craigslist. I threw up a ad on, hey, I'll haul junk for you in my pickup truck. And I think it was $30 was what I charged for my first load. And within like an hour and a half, I got a call that was 2 miles down the street from where I lived. I went there. It was like 4 loads, I think it was. And it was either 30 or $50 a load. I think the first time was 30, and the second job I went to 50. But I made something like $150 in 4 hours worth of work. For somebody that's used to making $10 an hour or whatever I was making, it's like, man, in 4 hours I earned what would have taken me, a day and a half, 2 days or whatever to earn at this other job. And the calls just kind of started just coming in, and I added a trailer. I was the absolute most ghetto junk removal company out there. I mean, right now people, they look at the stuff we have and the trucks we have, and it's a really tight knit professional organization. But back then, I mean, the first trailer I had, it didn't even have high sides. So I build these great, beautiful trucks now, but that first trailer was literally a utility trailer meant to haul ATVs that my boss at the roller skating rink lent to me. So I didn't have to keep doing all these runs in the pickup truck. And it had like, I don't know, 6-inch, maybe 10-inch sides on it, not even a foot. I mean, you're talking like something like this. And I would take ratchet straps, and I would run like 15 ratchet straps just all which way on the trailer. And, I know times going down the road. I remember one time I looked back and I saw my mattress just came off. And I just like, oh man, this thing's about to hit somebody, but luckily it flew on over and didn't. And it was after that I said, okay, now let's upgrade. Let's get a nicer trailer. And these are not dump trailers at this point. I wasn't thinking that big. It took me probably 3 months to sit there and weigh the pros and cons. I remember, and it's funny, when I recently found this document, I put a document together and I weighed out the pros and cons of getting another trailer. And this is a 6x12 trailer, single axle. And I want you to ask me about why I used a single axle here in a second too. It was a single axle, and I think it was $1,500, and it took me 3 months to make that decision. And now we'll make $15,000 or $90,000 decisions in a matter of a few hours, or at least a few weeks or a month or two. It's not a big drawn out thing anymore. So I really came from something small, and then we built it up now. Junk Doctors. We just took delivery of our 19th. I think it's our 19th truck. We don't run 19 trucks now. We've like sold some. I think 12. I think we got like 12 trucks in operation. On a busy day, we'll run all 12. On a slow day, might run 6. So in 3 markets: Charlotte, Raleigh, and Greensboro, North Carolina. It's one of the larger unaffiliated with a franchise junk removal companies in the country. We do right about $3 million a year. We were a little under that last year, but we've hit it before. So that's kind of where we stand on Junk Doctors.
Wow. So I want to kind of digest some of all this that you just told me. So, when you first began, it was just kind of trying to supplement and find some extra money to kind of pay for your racing and all that. When did this change in your brain to this is something I could do as a career? This is something that's definitely profitable and I could scale.
Paul, I was always looking for something. So even when I had that $10 an hour job, which I kept that I got that when I was 15. And I kept it until the business really kind of took off. And I think I was 21 at that time when I quit. And I would have quit a little bit sooner, but my boss's son was actually climbing a tree, and one of the limbs wound up breaking, and he fell and he broke his back, and he was going to be out. My boss was going to be out for a prolonged period of time doing that. So I hung around just to help him out. He was such an influence on me that, I hung around for a few more months after that till things got in a better position. And his son, by the way, recovered, and he and his dad he's since sold the roller skating rink, and he and his dad own a towing company, and they're doing well. And he's a good friend of mine. We get lunch pretty much once a week. So, but anyway, I was, at 21, I stopped there, and I went kind of full time in the truck, on the junk removal side of things, and things just kind of took off from there.
How long were you on the truck?
I would do jobs I was on every single job working like 70, 80 hours a week for about a year and a half. And then I brought somebody on that started handling a lot of the jobs, and I would be on it for maybe like 20 or 30 hours for another year or so. And then I was predominantly off after about year 3 and just kind of working on the business. And go back to your prior question, when did it look like it was actually going to be a career? I was always looking for something. So like I said, when I was at the roller skating rink, I had tried out this flyer delivery business. So I'd actually got these bags, and we would go to local businesses and they'd get them to pay us a little bit to put flyers in this bag. And then we'd run around and stick them on door hangers or doorknobs. We did that for a little while. It didn't really last. I washed airplanes at one point. Instead of doing car washing, I did some plane washing. I've always been around aviation. I'm a pilot, and just would do these things, and I wouldn't stick with it very long. So, I'd get a little success, and then it's like hit this wall. And instead of trying to figure out to make the business I was in work, I would switch to something else. And luckily, so junk removal started out well, but I'd actually gotten to a similar point. And it's funny, we're telling this story. This is the second show I've actually done today, or second, actually the first one was an interview we're going to be putting out later this week. And it was actually with a guy by the name of Zach Mefford. And Zach had started a company called Charlotte Junk Guys. And he had actually sold that company because he was moving back to Iowa. He and his wife were getting married. They were moving back to Iowa. He had sold that company. And I had come into where my growth had kind of stalled maybe a year or so into it. And I got on an internet forum, something like Reddit. It probably wasn't Reddit back then, but it was some sort of forum. And I basically just put a question out there and said, hey, I've started this junk removal business. It's going okay, but I can't seem to grow it. I don't see how I'm going to be able to grow this thing to where I can make a good amount of money and build a multi-truck operation and do the things that I wanted to do. And Zach replied to that. We wound up coming up with a phone conversation. And he said, well, man, you're only charging $195 for a trailer load. You need to go up to like $350 or $395 or something. So I was nervous as hell. And overnight I went up $200 on my price to $395 trailer load. And the other thing he's got me started on was Google Ads, which Google Ads was a gold mine in that period of time. It's still good now. Like, people knock it. We spend a lot of money on it. We get a lot of customers from it. The lifetime value is where a lot of the value is, because Google sucks you dry just as much as they possibly can. I still think it's a good thing for people to do, but they have to understand it. But back then there
wasn't as much competition. I'm thinking
$2 a click, man. It's like $2 or $3 a click. So, you'd have a budget of $25 and get 5 jobs or something crazy,
Yeah.
So we just took off like nuts at that point. We were making more money because we were charging more. And then we had like all these really good customers coming in through Google. And that lasted about 1.5 or 2 years. And then it gradually started getting more competitive as people found out about Google Ads.